Hi everybody, my name is Ian McCall. Let's have a little look at papillomatosis as a histological feature. Now, comments that this is a surface projection of the dermal papillae high up towards the skin surface. So you get this irregular undulation of the epidermal surface, and often there's a bit of overlying hyperkeratosis. Now, papillomatosis is commonly seen with warts, solar keratosis, and epidermal nevi. Now let's look at epidermal nevi first. In fact, let me just show you a clinical picture first. These are various examples in Global Skin Atlas. Let's just have a little look at this one here. And if we look at it full size, not quite in focus, but you can see the papillomatosis that's occurring in the surface of this lesion. You know, it's very what we call a warty sort of surface. And that's coinciding with what you're seeing in this histology here. So these are the surface projections. This is papillomatosis. You sometimes will get a bit of thinning of the epidermis towards the tip here. You may get even some Horton pseudocysts in this sort of area as well. There's quite a bit of epidermal acanthosis though here. Not that much thinning at the tips, but anyway, it's the papillomatosis that we're talking about in an epidermal nevus. This is a hyperkeratotic seborrheic keratosis. So you can see the acanthosis of the epidermis here and the papillomatosis. They sometimes call this church spiraling when you see these thick layers of hyperkeratosis above the papillomatosis. So you can see the papillomatosis here, but as I say, this was a thick seborrheic keratosis showing papillomatosis. We've mentioned it here. With warts, you'll see coilocytosis in the upper parts of the epidermis. We'll just see if we can see an example of that for you. This is a wart showing papillomatosis and very thick buildup of keratin on the surface here. And if you look in, you'll see the marked coilocytosis changes in the keratinocytes. In these papilla, there's the center of the papilla there, and these are the various coilocytes here with virus particles in them. The altered keratinocytes here with the virus particles in them. Coilocytes. So papillomatosis in a wart. Here's another variant of a wart. It's called a verrucous carcinoma. It's a lesion that is like a giant wart on the sole of the foot. We've got, let me show you some clinical examples of this first. Sometimes goes by the name of epithelioma caniculatum. Ends up like a rabbit warren. You can see how marked these lesions are. If we have a little look at that one there, you can see the extent of the lesion here. It acts like a well-differentiated squamous cell carcinoma, and so if you were to take a large shave, as was done in this here, there's a degree of papillomatosis. It's not quite as obvious in this, perhaps, as we would like it to be. Perhaps a little bit more obvious down here, the papillomatosis in this particular part of it. But this is behaving like a well-differentiated squamous cell carcinoma. Has this pushing edge as well when it's growing down into the dermis. You can see the keratin laid down here. So papillomatosis is part of a verrucous carcinoma when it's coming from the sole of the foot like that. There are some other classic conditions that show papillomatosis. Now, One is acanthosis nigricans. You know, this is the dark papillomatous velvety change that occurs in the axilla and the groin, sometimes the back of the neck, in both a pseudoform in people who are obese or in Down syndrome, and more floridly in people who have an underlying malignancy, such as a lung carcinoma. Now, if you're looking at the clinicals of that, these are some examples here, and we can just look in at this one here to get an idea of what that velvety papillomatous surface looks like clinically. Sorry, we might put that back up. This is what it can look like histologically. You can see the increased basal cell pigmentation here, and it's not as markedly papillomatous as many cases of this actually are. But this is one of the examples in Path Presenter of acanthosis nigricans. It's probably a milder version. This would have shown much more papillomatosis if a biopsy had been taken of this one. But the increased basal pigmentation of papillomatosis with nothing much else occurring in the dermis is fairly typical of acanthosis nigricans. Next condition to look at here is nevus sebaceus, showing papillomatosis. And this is the virtual slide here. Now this is showing quite marked papillomatosis. You can see these excess sebaceous glands here in the dermis. This all becomes a lot more papillomatous at puberty with the onset of hormonal function. You can see the excess sebaceous glands in the upper part of the dermis here, and the really marked overlying papillomatosis. If you look at this clinically, I mean, these are many examples here of nevus sebaceus post-puberty. We could just look at this one here. There we go. You get a better idea of the papillomatous nature. You can see the warty-like nature of the surface. And this would have been flat up until puberty. Usually there's no hair growing there, and it thickens at puberty. And this is the nature of the papillomatosis that you see in the surface with the excess sebaceous glands and some eccrine glands and the like here as well. The last two lesions we've got here with papillomatosis is this condition, syringocystadenoma papilliferum. Now, this is a tumor that tends to arise in a sebaceous nevus. This is the histopathology here. You can see the papillomatosis that's come up here. And usually there's just an overlying compact orthokeratosis, a little bit of focal parakeratosis. And there's usually a sort of bit of an invagination here of the epidermal surface with squamous epithelium. That papillary epithelial projection, flattened peripheral layer and a columnar luminal layer with apocrine decapitation. If we look into this, you can see some of the ducts here. Other ducts here. And usually the other thing about this, there's a lot of plasma cells in the infiltrate here in a syringocystadenoma papilliferum. So not only do you have that papillomatous surface, but you've got a lot of plasma cells. And usually pretty large apocrine glands beneath this. You can see the large apocrine glands here. So syringocystadenoma papilliferum with the papilliferous surface. I'll see if I've got a picture of it. These are some, when you Google this, there's this clinical here. I think obviously some other examples. Usually this, as I say, this tumor arises within a sebaceous nevus. And this is some of their examples of the papillomatous surface of a syringocystadenoma papilliferum. The last condition we've registered there for papillomatous surface is tuberculosis verrucosa cutis. Now, this is not a common condition. These are some examples. You can see the thick verrucous-like surface here. It's a particular presentation of tuberculosis of the skin. It's like a suppurative granuloma that comes up to the surface with a verrucous surface like this, but various other types of leishmaniasis and the like can do this as well. But whenever you see, and some of the deep fungal infections, chromomycosis, chromoblastomycosis can present like this as well. You really need to do a biopsy, but you can see the warty-like surface here. This is the histology over here. It doesn't show it particularly well. What you see is the massive caseous necrosis underneath here, but it's difficult to appreciate a papillomatous surface on this. Now you can't really. You see various granulomas here and the caseous granuloma down below. It's not terribly papillomatous here, but you can imagine that if you were to biopsy something like this, it would look a lot more papillomatous. But it's the caseous necrosis that really, and the granulomas that really gives it away as tuberculosis verrucosa cutis. A rare one. Okay. So, papillomatosis, we've mentioned it particularly with epidermal nevi, particularly with sebaceous nevi, but also with seborrheic keratosis. Watch for it with the verrucous carcinoma and ordinary warts. And the other classic with papillomatosis is acanthosis nigricans in the neck, nevus sebaceous, the syringocystadenoma that may develop in a nevus sebaceous, and lastly, and very rarely, tuberculosis verrucosa cutis. Thanks very much.